Thank you, Mr. President. Members, let me first express my gratitude to Lieutenant Governor Patrick for the manner in which he has worked with me over the last 2 weeks on this issue and for trusting me with this policy area since 2014. We have in good faith tried to address an emotional and highly charged issue in a bill I believed was not a violation of my oath nor the U.S. Constitution. I offered such a bill 6 times before this body and a 7th in committee last week. In his capacity as the presiding officer, he reassigned the bill from me and the Border Security Committee out of respect for the majority view within the Senate Republican caucus that wanted to pass a bill and recognizing that my view of my oath and constitutional construct of the relationship between the federal government's specified duties and the state's authority was in the minority view. With that in mind, I respect my colleagues' desire to pass a bill to message our concern to our constituents for the continued unacceptable situation this administration foists upon the nation that Texas unduly bears, and offer my compliments to Senator Perry for taking on a tough mission. Members, let us consider carefully our actions. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution says the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Emphasis, mine, is added. The oath that we take that says we will support the U.S. Constitution and the laws of this state is prescribed by Article 6, and that we will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. President Washington, in his farewell address, asked, "Where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation deserts the oaths?" Even though there are numerous federal officials maliciously violating their oath and the requirement for true faith and allegiance to the same, and I particularly note my belief that the Secretary of Homeland Security and the President himself are in this category, there is no clause in the U.S. Constitution that says the wrong I believe we are about to commit allows us to step outside the bounds of our oath and the text of the Constitution. The oath is not an administrative formality of holding office. As President Washington said, it is a sacred obligation. There is not only a separation of powers among the lateral branches of government, the legislative, executive, and judicial. There is also a vertical separation of powers between federal and state government. The 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution reads, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people." The truth of the matter is that Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution says that the Congress shall have power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. That clause specifies all power and responsibilities for immigration is delegated to the federal government. Members, that is why all my attempts to carry this legislation and the bill language therein had the proper federal authority responsible for disposition and deportation of those that we detain. The House has messaged this bill as the strongest border bill, but I believe that belies what is really happening here. For present ease of messaging, we are creating a false expectation of a bill as a solution that is decidedly outside the bounds of the constitutional construct, which I have explained. Should the House bring us a bill in the future that is messaged as the strongest law enforcement anti-crime bill, should we pass it, even if it contains elements that vacate the 4th or 5th Amendments, as this one vacates the 10th Amendment and Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution? For the short-term messaging gain between our two chambers during this election season, we are setting a terrible precedent for the future by invalidating our obedience and faithfulness to our Constitution. President Biden's failure to obey his oath does not compel us to violate ours. Instead, it compels our federal representatives to constrain him and for the electorate to remove him in the coming year. To close, let me return to President Washington's farewell address, where he warns of that which we are on the precipice of now doing. He states, "If in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation, for through this, in one instance, may be the instrument of good. It is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. I believe we should heed the warnings of our nation's first president. Thank you, members, for your time and attention. Mr. President, I move that my remarks be reduced to writing and entered in the journal. Thank you, members.